session at the International Uyghur Forum Global Parliamentarian Convention is now starting.
Bizden bir panelist kalmoqchi bo'ldi. Çek. Ayuja Hanım. Ayuja Hanım şöyle bağlı mı? Keldimi? Tamam. Çek. Çek ve bitsin. İşim var Gülmire. Rahmet. Mamininki bir tatlım var hayırlı. Dilşat my panel. Karasile. Sen ay oturdun zaten. Oturdum. Yeah, we met. I'm still with the user. Thank you for your excellent work. You may remember we had a video conference. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. May Allah bless us. İnşallah. Amin. Okay, we're gonna get after tomorrow, inshallah. This is the executive meeting of the. What's up? Okay. I don't have the data, so. Okay, no problem. Fadl is still here, huh? Yeah, I saw him, but I'll get his phone number. We'll contact him. You have his number? No, not yet. I'm trying to find him because I want him to listen. Ayuja Hanım geldi. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. If you could take your seats. It's a Muslim world. Muslim world. The Muslim world. It doesn't move. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Nuri Turkiel. I'm a commissioner and former chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. I'm so pleased to moderate this important discussion on Muslim countries' silence on the Uyghur genocide and what can be done to change the status quo. First, as somebody who missed yesterday's program for the most part, I wanted to begin by thanking the World Uyghur Congress, my longtime friend Dolkan Isa, and his incredible team for bringing us together here. I am profoundly grateful for Dolkan for his remarkable leadership during these challenging times. Sometimes I wonder how he can manage to do all of this. Okay. Okay. So thank you, Dolkan, for your leadership, keeping the community together, and for your advocacy work around the world, making personal sacrifice. Every time when I think of your mother who died in the camp, it just breaks my heart. That the sentiment is shared by many of us who have been part of this struggle, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years. I'd like to take this opportunity, since I'm in my official capacity to participate in this conference, to tell you a little bit about my agency, USCIRF, U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, that I have been able to serve in the past 3.5 years, including my 2 years leadership role. USCIRF is statutorily mandated under the IRFA, International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, to monitor religious freedom conditions in countries including China, Russia, Iran, India, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, and we make policy recommendations to the President, Secretary of State, and Congress. USCIRF has been monitoring and reporting on China's human rights abuses and religious persecution in the Uyghur region. As I remember from my time in the law school, USCIRF has been remarkable in its annual report and public engagement and recommending strong policy responses to human rights abuses committed against the Uyghurs. Specifically, since my tenure with USCIRF, we've done a couple of things that are not part of the mandate. One is to focus on atrocity crimes, mass atrocities. In summer 2020, shortly after my appointment, with the support of fellow commissioners, we sent a letter to Secretary Pompeo asking his team, him and his team, to look into to see if the PRC's atrocities against the Uyghurs amount to genocide. In this connection, I wanted to thank our colleague, Ambassador Kelly Curry, for her leadership advocating within the State Department for the official recognition, which I'm personally very grateful for. We also supported a number of China-related legislative initiatives, including the ones for the Uyghur region, Tibet, and Hong Kong. We advocated and held hearings on forced labor practices, digital authoritarianism, and also humanitarian crisis that the PRC policies have created for the Uyghur communities around the world. As a result, 7 out of 9 commissioners been sanctioned by Communist Party in Beijing, including myself, which appears to be retaliation against our work, monitoring, reporting, advocating policy responses to the Uyghur genocide. Much to our surprise, Putin's Russia also sanctioned several of us in 2022. Back to our discussion. Those of us doing public advocacy, Roshan, Umar, and Dolko, and myself around the world, we often get this question: where is the Muslim world on this crisis? How come we don't see public outcry, governmental responses? If I could borrow Sophie Richards' memorable line, she repeated, I don't know how many times in the last 5-6 years, you can imagine any government locking up 1 million of its Muslim population, you would be seeing emergency sessions in various places, including UN. We haven't seen any of it. So this is, to me, it's very disturbing, still is the case. And I don't recall a time, whether I do public speaking or media interviews, that one question has not been posed. So I think this panel is very important. In one instance, actually, the Chinese government put the ambassadors from Syria, Pakistan, and Palestine to condemn the United States and essentially whitewashing, saying like there's no genocide in the Uyghur homeland. You can look it up. It's available on CGTN YouTube channel. And they also said that the United States recognition is the lies of the century, that it appears that what we have done as a country, as society, got under the skin of the Chinese leadership. And the narratives that some countries, specifically Muslim majority countries, those delegation visited the Potemkin village, it terribly echoes the Chinese narrative. So that deserves condemnation and a different policy approach. And to make the matters worse, the Uyghur Islam has been likened to thought virus, and the Chinese officials publicly say things like, we're transforming Uyghurs into normal human being, as if that the Chinese Communist Party sets the standard for who is normal, who is abnormal. They also use some medical metaphor, saying that the thought viruses must be cleared out before it spreads to the vital organs of the state. Except for a few countries, Albania, Kosovo, Turkey, and Qatar, in some instances, the vast majority of the Muslim countries have been silent, and they didn't even willing to support the initiatives at the United Nations, and also some of the letter campaign initiated by our democratic allies, UK and Canada specifically. Today's conversation, and this one simple question warrants attention, because without addressing this is almost embarrassing that we've been getting a lot of support from the interfaith community. As somebody who works in religious freedom space, I always been very heartwarmed by the support that we're getting from the other faith community, but we haven't heard anything specific that would at least address some of the obvious facts. We have 5 experts from Turkey, Australia, Malaysia, and the United States to share their perspective on these issues and share some policy ideas, potentially bring those Muslim nations to the right side of the history. I'm pleased to be in the company of our esteemed colleagues in this panel, 2 MPs from the Turkish Parliament, and also a leader from Malaysia, and my good friend Ablakim, and the Uyghur religious leader Abdul Salam in the panel. I quickly introduce our panelists, and then I will let them to speak. To my left is Mr. Doğan Bekin, Turkish writer, translator, politician. He worked in the fields of foreign policy, diplomacy, and translation work. In addition, he provided text translation services to the President and Prime Minister Turgut Özal and other MPs. To Mr. Bekin's left is IUF Turkesh. She's also a member of the Turkish Parliament, representing Adana in for the E Party, Good Party. And also we have to MP Taş's left, we have Abdesalam Alim. Is one of the most respected Uyghur religious leader, scholar, religious scholar based in Australia. Dolkun and I had the pleasure of visiting Medina in 2015 while we were attending Anti-ISIS conference in Saudi Arabia. Mr. Alim is a founding member of the Union of East Turkestan Scholars, serving as the vice president and spokesperson for the organization. And finally, we have our colleague from Malaysia, Mr. Abdul Hamid, president of the Malaysia Consultative Council of Islamic Organization. He's the chairman of the National Consumer Advisory Council within the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Cost of Living. And then finally, we have my good friend Ablakim Idris, is the director of Center for Uyghur Studies, based in Washington, D.C. I've known Ablakim nearly 20 years. We worked hand in glove on the Uyghur human rights issues for nearly 2 decades. I'm so pleased that he's been traveling around the world and advocating Uyghur rights. And Ablakim is also a prominent voice and also in his own right scholar in religious studies. He speaks fluent Arabic and recently authored a great book, Menace. With that, I would like to open the floor. I ask you specifically show up without preparing written remarks. So I'm going to pose one simple question. If you could tell us what is causing this dead silence in various Muslim capitals today? knowing that Chinese government, the Communist Party, has been waging war on Uyghur Islam. And it's been, we're talking about an ongoing genocide that in its 7 years, disturbingly. If you could start with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Is it okay? Of course, today it is a very important event, and we hope that our gathering here today will be a new window for the future, and until now everything we said in words, and now the people and the world wants deeds from us. We hope that we will be voices to the Uyghur people in our parliaments and in other parliaments, and the necessary steps we hope that will be taken. The Uyghur genocide and the silence of the Muslim world is our topic, of course. We want to start with His Excellency Esteemed Dolkun Issa, President of the World Uyghur Congress, and all our Uyghur siblings representing the oppressed Uyghurs and distinguished participants who came from different corners of the world to show their solidarity with our Muslim Uyghurs who have been subject to the planned assimilation, arbitrary arrest, and incarceration, forced labor, forced sterilization, and so on, subject to shameful treatments to force them to abandon their religion, culture, and language. The CCP-controlled the Chinese government has committed numerous human rights abuses against our Uyghurs in Xinjiang that is always determined as genocide. Shipping incarcerated millions of Uyghurs in mass internment camps of so-called as reduction centers or concentration camps. The China's repression of Uyghurs in Xinjiang is the basic policy of the Chinese government led by CCP. China's attitudes towards the Uyghurs without any doubt constitute genocide and crimes against humanity. As many foreign governments determine, this is genocide and crimes against humanity. Most Uyghurs detained in the concentration camps as they were never charged with any crimes. The detainees were blamed mainly for fulfilling their religious rituals at mosques, having more than 3 children, but indeed their only crime is being Muslims, and so many Uyghurs have been labeled as extremists for practicing their religion. The Chinese government characterizes all expression of Islam in Xinjiang religion as extremist manners. The aim of this policy is to disempower the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. This is China's government approach towards Muslim Uyghurs. Meanwhile, according to China's government, all Uyghur Turks could potentially be terrorists or terrorist sympathizer or supporters. Besides the cultural and religious factors in Sinjar, the economic factors and the rich coal and gas reserves are important in this crackdown. Sinjar is an important crossroad for the Belt and Road Initiative, and that it connecting some Muslim countries both politically and economically with China. The Belt and Road Initiative's most important logistical place is Xinjiang. Therefore, the Uyghurs create risk factors to the China government for the effective implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative in Xinjiang, as this project is the most important in China's policy today. China, by means of the Belt and Road Initiative, establishes consistent access to the historical trade routes, namely called as Silk Road. The second important thing is that Xinjiang is very important region in energy producing. By taking into consideration the China's energy consumption, as a result of its big economy, the control over Xinjiang is very important for China. However, some Muslim countries do not criticizing the situation of Xinjiang due to their commercial and economic ties and diplomatic relations with China. They have become intimately tied to China, leading to its deafening silence on Uyghurs in Xinjiang. Many Muslim countries in Eurasia seem to tolerate and even support China's policies, sacrificing the cultural values of Uyghur Turks for their political and economic stability. Of course, in the recent years, we heard more about the Uyghur Turks, and they have no rights there. And according to our talks, mainly democracy system is for the people and by the people. And in China, as there is no democracy, there is dictatorship, and dictatorship system is for the dictators and by the dictators. And what is going on in China is definitely the dictatorship system is for the dictators and by the dictators. For that reason, fundamental rights of the Uyghur siblings are not taken into consideration, and many mistakes are made there in front of the world view. Instead of this, of course, the Muslim world, they not act collectively, one together, and they separately acting, and most of them, especially geostrategically, they consist of very important places such as Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, Egypt, Nigeria, and other main countries of the Muslim world who have a very huge population. Most of them, due to the mistakes of the other imperial countries, they become closer to China's policies, and they make collaboration with China in many fields. This is due to the representation of the 5 countries in the United States, and they need some countries to be with them in the resolutions. For that reason, they act together with Russia or with China in order to protect their goals and their futures. Of course, this is not acceptable by us. For that reason, first of all, the United States should be reorganized because there are 1.5 billion Muslims in the world and they are not represented in the Security Council. And the world are represented in the United Nations, but they have no right of votes. Only 5 countries have the right of votes for decision making, and during the current situation in Gaza Strip is also give us a very important fact. For that reason, as we can discuss the same for Uyghur Muslims, the policy maker is China in the United Nations. For that reason, if all countries decide for the mistakes they made against humanity there, they can refuse it in the council. For that reason, as I stated before, firstly, the United States should be reformed again. And the 8 countries, developing 8 countries, are very important for the Muslim countries. Unfortunately, more than 20 years, they are not active. If they become active, because geostrategically they are very important countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, Egypt, Iran, and Nigeria. For that reason, these countries should make policies and should make resolutions for the sake of the Uyghur siblings. If they act together, we hope that China will take into consideration the decisions of these countries, because China has very good relations with these countries, and they import many raw materials from these countries. Especially Indonesia is very important for China, and most of their raw materials are imported from Indonesia and the other countries, and the oil and other things also from the Gulf countries. Because we should, the Muslim countries, I will completing, the Muslim countries should come together and they should strengthen the 8 project in order to have their voice loudly. And I want to say that the 5 principles of the 8, this is very important. We don't want any problems. We want peace in the world, because the world is enough for everybody. Peace instead of conflict, dialogue instead of confrontation, cooperation instead of exploitation, justice instead of double standards, equality instead of discrimination, democracy instead of oppression. And for that reason, if we implement these 5 principles, everything will be better. By constructing walls between the minorities, you cannot solve the problems. And many other countries tried this approach, and finally the minorities won. you cannot by
Thank you.
pressure,
If you could wrap it up.
you cannot reach to your goals, and you cannot prevent the language and their customs,
Okay.
because there are many symbols like this,
Yeah.
and we hope that the Uyghurs will
Thank you.
win at
Thank you
end.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you. If I could ask the panelists to, in the interest of time and interest of this important platform that we have, just if you could focus on the Uyghur genocide, and if you can explain and share your perspective why this is, and then also if you will have a chance to make some policy recommendation at the end of the day. We need to work to change the status quo. If I could go to MP Turkesh Taş. In 2009, then Prime Minister Erdogan, now President Erdogan, likened the human rights abuses, the harsh treatment of the protesters on July 5 in Urumqi to a genocide. From that position to the current position has been very confusing and disappointing. If you could help us to understand better why the Turkish government has not been leading on this in light of the Uyghur and Turkish people's historical, cultural, religious ties. This is something that need to be talked about. And I engage with the Turkish government through my official responsibilities, but I haven't been able to get a clear answer. If you could help us to share your
First
perspective.
of all, I'm the member of opposition party of the government.
Yeah.
So I cannot talk on the behalf of the government here, but I will talk about my view and my party view
Thank
here. And again, first of all, it's a great honor for me to be a panelist in International Uyghur Forum. I would like to thank Japan for opening its parliament grounds for this event. And thank you and congratulate Isa Dolkun and all the team behind this organization. And of course, thank you all fellow participants from all over the world for being here today. I'm a politician from Turkey, as you mentioned, a member of the Turkish parliament and a representative of Turkish E Party. It's good party, opposition of government. Like others from Turkey here, we feel that Turkey is our motherland, but Turkestan is our fatherland. But besides that, I'm also here to represent the legacy of my father, whom many of the fellow participants would know as Başbuğ Alparslan Türkeş. His life was a testament of unwavering support to the Turkic world, which certainly included our fatherland, Turkestan. There will always be a generation of Türkeş who will be advocate of Eastern Turkestan case. Let us also commemorate Osman Batur, the eagle of the Altai Mountains, Hoca Niyaz Hacı, the leader of the independence struggle, Mehmet Emin Buğra, the first president of Eastern Turkestan, and İsa Yusuf Alptekin, who ensured the Eastern Turkestan case was known worldwide. May them rest in peace. Let us reiterate our support for all those whose freedoms have been taken away by China, and to all our fellow countrymen in China's oppression camps in the person of İlham Tohti. As I said, I'm a politician. I will be leaving the more comprehensive analysis and technical perspectives to other fellow speakers here. But what I would like to provide is a view from eyes of a Turk from Turkey. The starting point of Turkish history, the main source of our culture, Eastern Turkestan, is not the issue of the almost 20 million people who are struggling for their lives in those lands only, but also a bitter but true issue for the world's Turkish community and, of course, for peoples of many other countries in the world. The issue came to Turkey's and the world's agenda about 70 years ago, thanks to the late İsa Yusuf Alptekin. My father, Turkesh, who had foreseen that drama that is happening today years ago, used to say, the problems of East Turkestan are not only the concern of the Turkish people, but also of Islam and all civil society organizations claiming to respect human rights. Therefore, to remain indifferent to this case is not only a responsibility towards our nationality and conscience, but also an additional burden on the global community. He added that, as I have always emphasized, science and technology not only play a crucial role in achieving the high level of welfare for nations, but also form the strongest and most robust element in preserving freedom and independence. Therefore, it is our hope that investments, particularly in the fields of science and technology, as well as culture, tourism, and heavy industry, are increased in Eastern Turkestan region. Furthermore, we also hope that equal opportunities and roles are provided to the people of Eastern Turkestan in both job markets and bureaucracy. As we all know, the Eastern Turkestan was occupied in 1949, which means 74 years ago. There are several reasons why China benefits from maintaining control over Eastern Turkestan. First, it is an area that is rich in natural resources. The region boasts the largest reserves of oil, natural gas, and coal in China, with Beijing looking to reduce reliance on imports and establish energy security. Dominance over Eastern Turkestan offers clear benefits. The region is also China's largest growing base of cotton, lavender, and hop. Eastern Turkestan also offers Beijing sizable land mass, making it a major area for raising sheep and cattle and fine wool production. At 3 times the size of France, for the most populous country on earth, the region offers important food security advantages. It borders 8 countries: Mongolia, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. Its geographic location therefore offers important trade links with Asia and Europe, vital for the success of China's Gargantuan Belt and Road Initiative. This initiative seeks to revive the Silk Road trade network and vastly expands China's economic and political influence on the world stage. The strategy plans to cover 2/3 of the world's population and account for 1/3 of global GDP. To achieve its objective, China plans to build six economic corridors. Eastern Turkish plays a vital role in success of 3 of these. Based on this information, in my opinion, the genocide in Eastern Turkestan can not only be explained as Islamophobia, which is a trend started after terrorist attacks on September 11th. It has been obvious for us to this date that China is trying to cover its inhumane politics over Eastern Turkestan with Islamophobia. They use social media and internet very well to spread the rhetoric, Muslims are terrorists, to all over the China. With anti-terror policies so loosely defined, Islam, often synonymous with extremism, subversion, and difference, and those who visibly practice it have become convenient marks of increased surveillance, socio-political oppression, extrajudicial detention, and even torture, that all officially under the guise of the war on terror and for the purpose of state security. In China, Islamophobia has effectively been state-sanctioned, legislated, securitized, and widely accepted. Religious securitization can be understood as the repression Muslim faith is not being allowed to name their newborns Muslim names like Muhammad, to travel to perform pilgrimage freely and requiring them to prove them they are patriotic and law-abiding before they are allowed to undertake the Hajj, to fast or pray during Ramadan, which is monitored by the Han relative living in their home. Muslims are also forced to eat pork and sell products Islam prohibits consumption of and profit from, such as alcohol. The list goes on and on. Estimates based on satellite imagery show that since 2017, 65% of mosques have been destroyed or damaged as a result of government policies, and 30% of important Islamic sacred sites, shrines, cemeteries, and pilgrimage roads, including many protected under Chinese law, have been demolished. These facts are just the tip of the iceberg. But I would like to leave further discussion on the topic to experts here, like Mr. Abdul Hakim Idris. To recap, it is the wish not only for Turkey, but of the entire Turkic world and humanity for the people of this region to have a bright, happy, and prosperous future. Eastern Turkestan's national resources should not be exploited, and that it should receive its fair share of these resources. Obtaining the true right from the national wealth of Eastern Turkestan, granting the most fundamental human rights, such as the removal of cultural identity and religious oppression, will naturally lead to the relaxation and development of Eastern Turkestan, as well as the further strengthening and development of China's relationship with Turkey and the rest of the democracies in the world. Eastern Turkestan holds a special place in our hearts. It's a part of the Turkic world. It is our fatherland. With the people of the region are our relatives. They have the unwavering support of us, the Turks of Turkey. With that, I would like to thank you all and pass the microphone to my next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MP Turkesh. Thank you. Again, going back to the same question, Abdusalam, if you could help us to understand, you're a scholar on your own right, other than being, in addition to being a religious leader. Can you set the stage for the discussion why this is happening? Why there's a dead silence in the Muslim streets, Muslim countries?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. And I start by Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. I like to also take this opportunity to thank the organizers and especially everyone who came here, sacrificing your special time to be with us, to share our concern, our problems. And this is really important. As I was introduced as a religious scholar, so I should say that from a religious point of view, it's said that one cannot truly thank God without thanking people. So this is a great moment for me, especially for our people. You are here as sitting as witnesses, voices of the voiceless people of East Turkestan. Thank you very much. Now I will enter to the point. I mean, first part was a little bit discussing about the religious suppression and problems that our people have been facing in East Turkestan, so which have been covered to some extent. So the reasons now why the Muslim world are distancing themselves or ignoring or turning a blind eye to the issue of East Turkestan, which when we look at it from the religious point of view, it is one of the fundamental responsibilities of every Muslim person, whether it's an individual level or organizational level or governmental level, that they have to be at least looking at the situation, trying to study it, understanding it, and accepting that there is a problem. That's number one. But unfortunately, that's not also even happening. We are not, before we go into the issue of why they are not supporting us, why they are not signing for the motion presented in the United Nations, or et cetera, just accepting the reality is not happening. And that is the biggest thing which is actually hurting us as people of East Turkestan, because we are Muslims for the last 1,000 years. And we were taught, as I studied Islam back in my country. I was from the age of 7, 8. And we were taught that, Muslim world and us are one body. And East Turkestan is undetachable part of Muslim world. That was our understanding, our knowledge about Islam and the Muslim world. But when we look at the reality, that's been totally the opposite. So we feel so hurt by the ways that they are treating us. But when we have to look at it from emotionally, it is really hurting. And politically also we see the result. But we have to be realistic as well at the same time. Why this is happening? Has it been happening in the same manner for like, since we entered Islam for the 1,000 years, or was it a new thing? I have some personal experience in this regard. Yes, there were times that, we were helped by those so-called Muslim countries so that we could be educated. Islamic knowledge, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, other countries allowed us to be educated there, and they support us financially as well. There are many of us who are sitting and sharing this panel as well, have been benefited from those sort of support and financial help so that we could study. And also there were times that, some Muslim organizations like Muslim World League, OIC itself also allowed us to educate the people, Muslim world, and they have given us some opportunity to be part of their conferences. Two of such conferences I have personally attended. One was in Seoul, Korea, 2012, which was organized by OIC. It was known as Muslim Minority Symposium, where they did not give me opportunity to speak, express, or to talk about the suppression or the problems of the East Turkestan. But they at least allowed us, to represent Muslims, Muslim minority. Yes, there were representation from China, as representative from Chinese Muslims who came from Beijing, and they specifically, when they saw me, that I'm sitting with my cap, and they asked them, who is this person, why is he here? So when they said he's just a guest, they weren't still happy with that. But in the question Q&A time, I stood up, I tried to express my viewpoint. I was suppressed, like, you can't just sit down and listen. That was like, but I still took it as positive. Yes, they allowed me to be there at least. And then we had another one organized in Taipei, Taiwan in 2015 by Muslim World League, where they gave us the opportunity to speak about a little bit about the suppression and problems of East Turkestan. That means there was some sort of, like, little bit light that we could feel positive. Yes, they are there to listen to us or accept us as members or part of the Muslim world. But as time passed and the political situation of the world has changed in the recent years, especially after the September 11th incident, that, and we became, I think, the people of East Turkestan were the hardest hit people under the name of war on terror or Islamophobia, because China has used it fully, 100%, and the United States could not use that one or benefit from that one in the same manner they put it, like, the policy, but China used it against us, destroying people in every level. So we can say that if you want to give an example of people who say that I am suppressed because of my religion, that's me. If someone says I am suppressed because of my economy, that's me, Uyghur. If you say about, like, suppressed or because of my culture, my language, we all fit in those all categories. So the problem is there, and it's fact that everyone knows it. It's there, and because of the hard work done by the various organizations, World Uyghur Congress, and people around the world, made everyone understand and see the reality. But unfortunately, they are still turning blind eye to that. So the factors for that one is economic partnership. I mean, you are all scholars and intellectuals. You understand, you know that. I don't have to give these factors. You understand. But it's just to reinstate that this is real. And everyone is looking at their own interests. They put their own interests before the others, right? So economic partnership with China, with the Muslim countries, is one of the things. And investment and trade, China has given an opportunity or became a major trading partner for many countries. All the Muslim world, you can say, name any of them, they are really benefiting from this, these slogans that China is presenting. Yes, if you become partner with us, we will make your life, like, turn your life into paradise. And unfortunately, the leaders and majority of the countries are accepting that, and they are, I mean, realistically also they are benefiting to some extent. And also China is putting on them that a non-interference policy, that when they give them the opportunity, they always put a condition, okay, we can do be partners with you, but the condition is you don't interfere in our affairs and we don't interfere in yours. But they do interfere in others, but they don't allow the others to interfere in their internal affairs, and they keep continuing commit on this violation against people of East Turkestan. Energy dependence is also became recently that China is dependent on energy, and Muslim majority countries are exporting oil and other resources, and China is benefiting. That's also another factor that Muslim world is getting closer to China. And political alignment is one of the, I believe, this most important one, because some countries may align with China on certain international issues or political stance leading to improve bilateral relationship. And also shift is happening because of in the last, before the September 9/11, we all know that the relationship of the Muslim countries with the United States and the Western countries were really in good level. But after that, the things have changed, and there have been started distrust of the Muslim countries on United States and its allies, and they want to look for some big brother they can rely on, and they found China as the right government to rely and follow, and that's unfortunately harming us more as a result of that. Historical position also very important. Previously, like in the early the panel, it was discussed that China and Muslim world did not have any conflict in the last 1,000 years. So after that, the example was given, like 750, there was a war between China and the Muslim world. It was between China and the Turks, and they got defeated. After that, you don't find any, a real example of any conflict. On the other hand, you find lots of issues between United States and the Muslim world, especially the Arab world, and that makes the Muslim world feeling that China is best or the better friend, and they give them all the incentives and both economical, political benefits. So they naturally go with the China. Now, also, another important example is that the war, Afghanistan war, in the beginning, in the 90s and 80s, we know that, how they were supported against the Russian government. And all the Muslim countries came and supported them, right? But in our case, it didn't happen because, again, the same situation. So the same country who benefited became enemy afterwards. There was a long conflict, and we know what happened in that region. And China takes again an opportunity. Okay, yes, you were subjugated, you were treated, you were ill-treated. So we're here to support you, to help you, and they come with lots of incentives to the Afghan people. And now even the political mind of the Afghan government has started changing, shifting from. They seem to understand us to some level, but now they are taking those interests and making some policy difference of changing policy and getting closer to China. And that, again, we see that in every such policy a Muslim country passes, they accept the condition of China, and that's why we keep suffering and we don't see any support.
Thank you.
Just one thing I would like to finish with what the sister Arfia rightly expressed her view during the dinner, answering one question, why the Muslim world had been not being supportive of Uyghurs. She said, since 9/11, there has been a very strong Islamophobia, and China was acting as a veto member of UN to sign of every resolution against Islamophobia, which naturally convinced the Muslim world, relying on China one way or the other, and turning a blind eye towards Uyghurs.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. You did exactly what I was hoping that you would do. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your perspective on those political, economic, and diplomatic concerns. If I could go to Mr. Abdul Hamid, I have a specific question for you. I think the reasons that Mr. Alam described, I think, is applicable to your own country. The USORF's current chairman, who's sitting over there, Abe Cooper, and I attended a number of meetings with diplomatic corps and the representatives from the Muslim countries, and he often asks something very simple. What it takes for interfaith community or religious leaders, if the government is unwilling to take a position, to issue a statement condemning this modern-day genocide? If you could address that, Malaysia is a democracy. It has a free press, a very active social media. What a religious community can do, at least if the government is worried too much about BRI or too much worrying about other concerns. And then the other point that I wanted to ask you, the question is, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim is a respected democracy leader. The Uyghur diaspora were looking for him to do something different than the previous administration. We have not seen. So if you can specifically focus on that, and then you will have a chance to make some policy recommendations.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace upon you. Yes, the non-state actors are doing something, a lot. The Muslim organizations, the non-Muslim organizations are getting together. We did a lot of, couple of demonstrations for the last few years in front of the Chinese embassy. And we had discussion, we had engagement. We even brought Omer Khanet and the team has come to Malaysia, met some of the ministers, I explained. So there is this engagement. It's not that we are neutral in that sense. But let me just then, after answering that, Anwar Ibrahim, well, he's only about probably 10 months in the premiership. And he's making some inroads to see how he can unravel this issue. And I think he's giving some signals for the civil societies to act. But let me give you a perspective, because I saw the topic of this is what is the perspective of the Islamic world to understand this. I'm going to give you some ideas of the contradiction and the inconsistency of, when the West, the Americans and others are always trying to mobilize the way that, now we are talking about human rights, where there is a very clear inconsistency in this, in some of the things. So I'm going to give you a very short summary of my thoughts on this. Now, the discourse on the human rights in many countries displays the many contradictions in the world we are facing. There have been many declarations and conventions in many forms, but human rights enforcement has been vetoed. Let me repeat that, have been vetoed and voted against by countries having their own interests. Voting against or abstaining from may be seen as the right of opinion, but vetoing the voice of the majority is undemocratic and against the fundamentals of democracy. Condemnations and denouncements have been rhetorically pronounced, and yet voices of the victims of violation of human rights remains unresolved. While the principles of human rights generally refers to the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the reality of many nations, both East and West, First World and Third World, North and the South, reflects the fact that none can claim zero violation of human rights. None, East or West. The narrative of nations violating human rights have been diverse according to the interests of each ruling government. Denials and ignoring calls to stop the violations are now reflected by many nations. The reason being each nation, especially the small and the weak, wants to maintain the positions in the good books of the powerful regimes, describing and narrating between freedom fighters and terrorists, between independence movement and resistance movements. Democracy and dictatorship determines the prism of how any conflicts are being perceived. On one hand, there is recognition of violation of human rights, and yet on the other, there is a double standard and hypocrisy of treating a nation or an ethnic or a community in accordance to the agenda of the powers that be. And so the violation of human rights remains unabated. Within the Islamic world, you asked me about Islamic world, why are we distancing? Let you understand this perspective. Within the Islamic world, a perspective of oppression and denial of rights is eluded from the framework of what we call the Maqasid Sharia, meaning the purpose of the Islamic Sharia. The Maqasid Sharia refers to the specific aim was preservation and protection of 5 essentials of human well-being: the religion, the life, the intellect, the lineage, and the property. In this light, the Muslim nation should hold on this guidance when confronted by the abuse of human rights or in any conflicts. However, in many cases, this practice is not in place by the fact that there is a notion that practicing Islam in its comprehensive manner is seen to be a process of Islamization, which is problematic to the superpowers, both East and the West. And therefore, debating human rights from the Islamic prism is normally sidelined. The Muslims are now facing reality of existential challenge. Being Muslims and to practice Islam in its comprehensive manner is seen as problematic and threatening. Despite knowing Islam as a religion of peace and compassion, this religion is being narrated as violent and intolerant by those who have hijacked Islam from its true meaning. The fact that Muslim minorities are being subjugated and treated as low human beings, even by legislation in some countries, and yet the prejudices towards Muslims and Muslims nations are prevalent. Victimizing of Muslims as convenient targets seems to be the order of the world. Terrorizing Islam is trending by the East and the West. The language used when it relates to Muslims has never been consistent when it comes to the Islamic communities. They are either perceived as problematic or a threat. Aside from distorted expression of Islam by some extremists, the credible and authoritative Islamic meaning of Huququl Insan, or right, the human right, is generally been perceived not to be in line with the global standard of human rights. The fact that Islam challenges the East and the West, especially in areas of social and economic justice, Islam is seen, again, as a threat. The main threat being resistance against the hegemony of the superpowers, again, both East and the West. Islam that is posed as a danger, either under the name of global trade or global development model, Islam, in actual fact, promotes equity, justice, and balance as opposed to economic concentration and monopoly, abuse of power, suppression, and oppressive laws. Islam teaches harmonious coexistence, compassion, respect, and trust as contrast to political hegemony, manipulation, exploitation, occupation, repression. The Quran ordains in one of the chapters that killing one person equals killing the whole of humanity, and saving one person equals even saving the entire humanity. This is the Islamic call for respect to individuals and collective existence. Just 1-2 minutes. I know you are a bit stressed with the words I'm using. But the world now is being hugely dominated by the unipolar agenda of the superpower, negating not only human rights, but promoting human wrongs. And therefore, any resistance against the global powers will be faced with severe consequences, including sanctions and international law, selectively. Freedom fighters are labeled as terrorists. Demands for right of self-determination are narrated as rebels. Resistance against apartheid regimes branded as violations against national interest. There are lists of inhumanity, barbarism, and crime against humanity, genocide, apartheid, mass massacre, collective punishment, ethnic cleansing, arbitrary extrajudicial murders, indiscriminate killings, and illegal seizures and occupation. These Islam totally rejects and obligates all Muslims to resist and stand against them. Islam burdens all Muslims to support all victims of oppression. However, the reality is this: crimes are also perpetrated by both governments of the West and the East. Aggression and assault against defenseless people are normalized and narrated of self-defense. You killed 8,000 people in 2 weeks, and that is self-defense? Children, women, the sick, the hospital, the churches, the mosque. You tell me that's self-defense? The Uyghur case is no less significant than other cases of human rights violation like in Palestine and Kashmir. The voices against these abuses and contradiction to the Geneva Convention until to this day are being ignored. Getting a united voice to stop the violation seems to be selective. The international political hegemony is dominating the global direction towards any conflicts. The fact of the matter is, transnational repression that was discussed in a very deliberated manner just now is not only about the state targeting dissenting voices, but also is also applied to nations. Some nations are inflicted with punitive economic sanction, but some are left undeterred. Though the violations are blatant.
If you could wrap it up, would be great. We're running out of time.
Okay. Now we call, yes, Uyghur plight should be voiced strongly to all, by all. The Muslim nation should address the issue both as the right to religious and cultural practices and the right to a life of dignity. Okay. We call China to answer to the evidences of atrocities and the testimonies of Uyghur victims. We reject China's Sinozization agenda, which is cultural genocide, and so are other deculturalization of Muslims in other parts of the world. We call for the united voice to demand for a halt to all discriminations and oppression in China in the equal manner to all minorities in the world. We are committed to the principle of justice and human rights and sovereignty of local population, and therefore we condemn any occupation and demographic change of local population. We abhor and against the denial of freedom and right to self-determination, but at the same time, we are also against double standard and hypocrisy by the Western powers in terms of applying international law. We share the pain and agonies of the Uyghur brothers and sisters as a matter of Islamic brotherhood and brotherhood in humanity, and that goes to all oppressed communities by all occupying powers. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, I've observed the discussion. I've listened to some of the words they've said. Yes, we are with the Uyghur brothers. We are with you. Dukan, you must understand it. We are with you. But again, you must be cautioned. The Muslims are so sensitive of what's happening to them. You must understand, we are not in the stage of a vacuum. There's a contextual history of how Muslim has been victimized. You must understand that. So any statement coming from you, you must be cautious. You have to refer the Muslim communities, becoming just a tool or voice of the superpowers.
Thank you. You mentioned double standard. I think that also simply applicable to the Uyghur genocide. We didn't see the street protest in response to the Chinese genocide.
We did, Mr. We had a demonstration.
Yeah, in handful countries, but in comparison to the other type of responses, we haven't seen it. To you, Ablakim, I have been watching you and following you on social media. You have been traveling around the world. You're a fluent Arabic speaker. You're also a scholar on religious studies. You studied in Egypt, Al-Azhar University, and you have been engaging with civil society representatives, general public. Educate us what your sense have been through from those visits, specifically with the people, Muslim people in various countries that you visited.
Thank you, my dear friend,
Thank you.
Commissioner Nuri Turkel.
Thank you.
Please allow me to say one sentence to my friend and the President of Tunisia, who became president during this genocide never happened before in mankind. This genocide.
Is your microphone on? Now it's on.
So Mr. Dolkun Isa became president of World Uyghur Congress during this genocide. He is the third president of World Uyghur Congress, which we founded together. And he was able to mobilize the world community and make this case worldwide. I will thank him. I know him. He works tireless day and night. Thank you so much, and we are proud of you. For the name this panel, we are talking about the most of Muslim countries' silence on Uyghur genocide. We should change this. After most of Muslim countries complicit on Uyghur genocide, on China's war on Islam. Because if you look back, when the China began this genocide, OIC covered up, Organization of Islamic Cooperations. Many Muslim scholars went there in camp, said that China helping to eradicate the Uyghurs and making them normal. During this genocide, again, and right now, if you look in the recent delegation from Organization of Islamic Cooperations, delegation from Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, President of Pakistan, visiting them and telling them that China helping the Uyghurs. They don't understand. They standing with the system they organized to burn the whole Quran as a state, not the one person. Destroying the mosques, taking the deen, the religion from our heart. We will never be a Chinese Muslim. There's a Chinese Muslim, they could have their deen. But almost 15 years, we don't have nothing to read to educate our religion. This is happening. So I will tell this truth. I will see many Muslims, NGOs, most of the Muslim NGOs, countries, hypocrite on this Uyghur genocide. There are more than 56 Muslim countries, thousands universities, scholars. There is no one report about the Uyghur genocide, China's war on Islam in our country, except Dr. Azim Ibrahim. He is based in the US. Thank you so much for what you did for the Uyghur genocide. So, Mr. Chairman, I had the opportunity to go from Kazakhstan to Jordan to Saudi Arabia to Turkey to Malaysia, Indonesia, and I had the opportunity to meet with the Muslim NGOs in British and the UK, Europe, and North America to explain them what's going on to the Uyghurs. It's not, of my point, it's human rights abuse, human rights atrocity, but it is eradicate a nation and transforming them to other people. Think about this. If you shot, you will dead. Done. But if you sit in the concentration camps, days and the weeks and the years, to denounce your religion, your belief, and you forced become an atheist, Han Chinese, somebody else, it's worse than death, what we are facing. So, when I first went to Indonesia last year in October, there were as everywhere, this is like a US plot against China's rise and the Western game against the Muslim, this narrative, CCP's narrative. So I had the opportunity, I don't want to give the organization's name here in front of camera, sitting in front of the 40 people. Some of them were NGOs presidents, scholars. They integrated me about this question. What's happening? I told to them, what happened to my family, how I lost contact with my father, how my sister are in the concentration camps, how my nephews are almost 10 years, like 1 million Uyghur children educated in atheistic systems. And ask them to do. But what I realized is, in those Muslim countries, we have to look at difference. There's the MENA, Middle East, North Africa, Central Asia, Southeast Asia. Everywhere is different from each other. You know what? One Muslim, if he spend his time to educate on the graduate university, he or she will never hurt Uyghur word in education system. China already made sure those countries' educational system, nothing about Uyghur except Turkey. I can say the most. I'm talking about the most. Then Chinese disinformation machinery working so well. We are talking economic interest. It's not economic interest anymore. It's corruption. Taking them hostage. Taking them university as a hostage. For example, Chinese ambassador to Egypt, every 2 or 3 weeks, he go to Sheikh al-Azhar, the head of the famous Al-Azhar University. This year in April, when I met with the Grand Imam in Jakarta, he was already twice went to our country. He said every week the Chinese ambassador come to us to inform us. Many organizations taking visit from them and they're representing them like a Chinese Muslim, which is there are Chinese Muslim, Hui Muslims. They are not talking about the Uyghur Muslim. Then I will head up. The China using disinformation, for example, I'll give one example how it is to make our case to Muslim countries. While China destroying the mosques, they are built the largest mosque in Africa and Algeria. When China as a state burning the Quran, as a state condemned the one maniac who burned the Quran in Sweden. Organization of Islamic Cooperation gathered their delegation to condemn one maniac's burning of the Quran. Many are people asking, is the same Quran what the Chinese Communist Party burning our country? Are we the same Muslims? This is the issue. China using academia, think tank, those issues. And we can accept, okay, states have own interest, but where are the institutions? Where are the NGOs? Except a few. And the Muslim world's support for Uyghurs, it's with condition. It should be no condition. Haq is haq, batil is batil. If where we stand, it should be like this. Yeah. This is in my opinion. And I will give me 1 minute. The problem is, as a Uyghur activist, I will tell my colleagues, we ourselves didn't understand this situation to explain the Muslim countries. If you go to the Muslim countries, it's war on religion, Islam. We should focus on this issue. Then we can counter and we will achieve some results. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have only a few minutes left. I would like to ask each and every one of you. Now we know some of the reasons as you have described. Each of you, I'd like to ask each of you to make 2 policy recommendations, the governmental level, NGO level, media, and general public. Each of you, please stick to the 2 minutes limit. We don't have much time left, and I wanted to offer you an opportunity to share, because at the end of the day, we have to do something to change this. The background information is valuable, but we're past that point now. The international community, the Muslims around the world, the policymakers should know a lot by now. There's so much information available. So if I can start with Mr. Bekin, MP Bekin. Just 2 minutes, 2 policy recommendations. Please be very brief.
Thank you very much. The first policy is that, of course, as I explained a few minutes ago, the Charter of the United Nations should be modified, and the United Nations Security Council should be re-established, because all representatives of the United Nations should have the equal rights. As George Orwell declared it in Animal Farmers, he says that there all animals are equal, some animals are more equal. And what we see in the United States is
United
the
Nations.
same.
United Nations.
United Nations is the same. And for that reason, immediately the United Nations Security Council status should be changed, and Muslim countries also should pay more attention to the oppressed people of our Uyghur siblings thereof. And these are very important, and we give promise to our Uyghur brothers and sisters here that we will represent them in our parliament, and we will be their voices in Turkey as we did before, and we will be making their request louder.
What do we do with the Turkish government? What do we do with the Turkish government to make them a little bit more? They didn't sign on the recent statement spearheaded by UK.
Of course, we for 2 days we listened to their problems. We know their problems, and we participate in all their activities, and we will prepare some resolutions for the parliament for the Uyghurs. And we will have very important steps, I think, together with our sister Ayuja and our brother Mr. Selçuk, and we will work together for our Uyghurs, and you will see within a short time their voice will be louder in the Turkish parliament.
I agree with you. The UN is hugely disappointing. They
very
failed to perform its
Thank
duty,
you very much.
starting from the leadership. If I could go to you, MP Turkesh, just share 2 policy recommendations, very specific and brief. Can you pull the microphone closer to you so that...
The East Turkestan genocide should be a government policy in Turkey, which should always stay in Turkish government life, and the Turkey should support or should show its support much more strong all over the world. For example, as the other speakers mentioned, we could also put conditions while we are dealing with China or and about our economic or strategic partnerships.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Alim? 2 policy recommendations. I have to remind you, I'm sorry for being hard-nosed because we have a few minutes left.
Just public awareness needs to continue. That's very important. It's from our side. Like, you know, I mean, when we look at the Muslim world, we see that there's 2 different, like when we talk about the democratic Muslim countries, they are not ideal democratic countries in the first place. And the others are authoritative. That means people don't have the power to speak against the policies that the government does. But within individual level, organization level, NGOs can still do a lot to at least help us to raise awareness about our situation. Secondly, that, you know, this is the international community have responsibilities to address the issue in the Muslim world in a way that they don't show to them that they are treating them differently. Like, you know, the policy, like, you know, the Sheikh has already mentioned. So that they have to present evidences in a more powerful way. I want to just give you one example. There's a well-known speaker, a religious cleric in Malaysia. I personally spoke with him many times, tried to convince him, because he is listening, like, you know, Muslims all over the world listen to him, like Dr. Zakir Naik. So we have given him all the information, but he was not ready to address this issue. But when he got convinced, yes, that is happening, he addressed it. When he addressed it, he faced lots of problems to his own safety in Malaysia. So it is actually, we need to encourage the Muslim leaders, we need to give them evidence, and we have to rebut that what China is doing. China is inviting Muslim scholars, leaders, organizations to China, to East Turkestan, and show to them stage drama, like, they present to them things that which are not true. And that's what they say. And we have also the saying that, seeing once is better than, hearing 10 times. And they see, and that even those who have the different understanding, once they go and come back, they change. And when we talk about our emotions, I think that's not the solution. We need to be clear. We have to keep working on that. We should not lose hope. That's very important. And inshallah, the things, the environment will change.
Okay, Sheikh Abdul Hamid.
Just one, not two, one. The
Okay,
Islamic
that's even
Human
better.
Rights Declaration issued by the OIC should be the tool to address the oppressed Uyghur by Muslim nation. Use that declaration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So,
Please be very brief. I'd like to open the floor for one
you already
question.
cut my time, brother. Give me a little bit credit of friendship. I was joking. So, I'm a very realistic person. I'm not talking about theology, theory. It's not helping me end of the day to contact with my mother, which I lost contact almost 6.5 years. I'm talking from reality. So reality is what we achieved in Western country didn't help me to contact, to find out about my family. The question is like a simple. So to build a global coalition, we have to work hard on Muslim majority countries. We have big potentials there. If we have right message, right people, self-confident activists, we could achieve it. We already achieved it. For example, Malaysia didn't sign with China the last letter supporting the China. Indonesia didn't support China. Turkey not. Some other Islam countries. This is like what we achieved until right now. I remember when we 2020 met with MP Seljuk in Seljuk Doğan in Ankara. There were no talks in Turkish parliament. Thanks to those brothers and sisters, Turkey is today cautious, and that's, I think, what we achieved as the Uyghurs. We worked. So as the Uyghurs, we have to work on the Muslim majority country, build a global coalitions for the stop the CCP's war on humanity, on democracy, freedom, particularly on religion. They try to take the religion from us away. This is very important. We are asking for the Muslim countries to help us get our deen, our religion back. That's simple, the question. So we could have our own deen. If we have own religious freedom, we can save our identity, and we can wait for next good time, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I could just summarize, reform the UN and Turkish Parliament. We have 4 MPs from the Turkish Parliament. Will work on the resolution, and Turkish government should have a very clear governmental policy in the Uyghur genocide. NGOs' critical role, public education, pushback on disinformation, misinformation, and OIC's statement, and finally save the religion. So for the remainder of our time here, we have only 3 minutes. I'd like to open the floor for one question. Just a question, no statement, please. We don't have time for a statement. If I could go to you. Just ask question, please.
Thank you. Before the question, I want to clear to panels. My family all gone. This is the part of the Chinese government's plan, cleansing or finishing more than 20 million Muslims in Eastern Turkestan. This is simply a Muslim. Okay, my question is, for Turkey delegates. Your Excellency Ayuca Turkish Taş, Dogan Bakın, Seljuk Özdağ, Muhammad Naji. We're grateful for this historic event happening right here in the Japanese Parliament. Is it possible for a similar event to be held in Turkish Parliament in the near future? My second question is, similar to many European countries, can the Turkish Parliament also establish an Uyghur friendship group? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. If you could quickly address that so we can conclude this program. Thank you. Can you do something similar at the Turkish Parliament?
Okay. Thank you very much. All 4 parliament members are from the opposition parties. For that reason, we are not the ruling party, but we will do our best to make an answer to your question. And before you ask this question, we talked with one another about the same, why our Uyghur sibling could not be represented in the Turkish Parliament. Inshallah, we will make our best to make such a programs there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been a thought-provoking, very informative conversation. I wanted to thank you for your participation, those of you in the audience, and please join me in thanking our panelists for their excellent remarks. Thank you. This panel discussion is concluded.